It was my biggest fear, losing someone I loved. It took failing over and over again. There was a time when I had no confidence, no self-worth, and very little love for myself. All of these things were robbing me of my joy. To me, solitude became a safe space. Grief changed me, relationships changed me. Eventually I realized I had to protect that peace at all costs. That collision of birth and loss changed me forever. Welcome to the first episode of Align with Solitude. I'm your host, Himali. This isn't just a podcast, it's a sacred space I've created and held, first for myself and now for others. Each part of my journey carries a powerful gift and a soul code. And in this space, I refuse to compress or water down any of that truth. Before we get started, I'd like to invite you all to join me in a short breathing exercise to help ground us into the present moment. So when you're ready, you can bring your eyes to a close, take a deep inhalation, and exhale. And there we have it, the present moment.
So thank you, Himali, for bringing us into this present moment. Let's begin. What does solitude mean to you, and how did it become your safe space?
Wow, where did I begin and how did I come up with solitude? Okay, so there were very few words that I felt could truly hold the weight of what I'd experienced. And solitude was one of the words that really felt aligned to what I was experiencing. It wasn't just a word, it resonated deeply with my spirit. To me, solitude became a safe space, one I had created and held within myself before I could even offer it outwards. Each part of my journey holds a powerful code. The more I was triggered into a spontaneous Kundalini awakening, the more my creativity was activated and the more I was guided by Source, Creator, God, Universe to bring the visions that I was receiving into form. For those of you who might be wondering what a spontaneous Kundalini awakening is, a spontaneous Kundalini awakening is a sudden, intense activation of your life force energy, which resides at the base of your spine, often occurring without warning or prior spiritual practice. It can feel extremely chaotic and overwhelming and deeply transformative as it pushes unprocessed emotions and patterns to the surface for healing. Whether online or in person, this platform became the first container for what I was being called to share for those who align with these insights.
So I found it very interesting what you shared with us about the spontaneous Kundalini awakening. But could you expand on what inspired you to create Align with Solitude as a platform?
Well, growing up in a busy city while navigating a chaotic childhood, I really craved peace. My father was struggling with alcoholism, and this shaped that craving craving for peace in ways that I didn't fully understand until later. Eventually, I realized I had to protect that peace at all costs. Being young in a noisy, fast-paced city made me feel even more restricted. I wanted a space to breathe, to drown out the unnecessary noise. And this led me to adopt a deeply introverted lifestyle where I spent most of my time alone. And this is interesting because there was a point in my life where I actually felt that I was very extroverted, but it wasn't really aligned to who I am at the core. And it was from that stillness that something sacred began to unfold. I really started prioritizing my spiritual growth, my healing, and my well-being. Solitude for me became the space where I began shedding layers of conditioning and where I planted the first seeds of this platform.
I can really see that you've been through a lot, and I appreciate the courage that you would have to be able to share this with us today. How did your spiritual awakening and solitude shape who you are now?
Wow. I think I would say like one of the most transformative parts of my journey was the awakening of my Kundalini, my life force energy. It accelerated everything in my life. I was constantly shedding old versions of myself and moving through cycles of energetic death and renewal. Which I know it sounds a little bit extreme for those of you that might be new to some of these words. When I say death for me is a very transformative space to be in. It's part of the cycle of life. For me, I've gone through many I've gone through many birth, death, and rebirths. And I knew that solitude was the only space sacred enough to hold that level of transformation. It's taken layers after layers of shedding to even begin discovering my wholeness. This is still an ongoing process, but through it, I've become more authentic. And for me, that is the path to ultimate liberation.
I can see that your Kundalini awakening has played a big part in who you are today. Can you now touch on your shadow work and how it transformed your path?
Wow, okay. So shadow work, I love shadow work. You guys will definitely hear me speaking more about that. So shadow work entered my life at a pivotal moment, and with it came the dark night of the soul. It got really, really intense for me. Things began shifting rapidly as I moved through the different stages of my internal process. I'll be dedicating an entire episode to this part of my path because it deserves time and space. But to touch on it briefly, shadow work helped me become more aware of the role I was playing in my own suffering. Because I found myself constantly, I became a bit of a chronic venter. So everyone around me, I'd always have a sob story. I'd always go to them, feeling very sorry for myself. And it was through shadow work that I began taking accountability for the self-imposed victimhood and the mental prison that I was living in. I started dedicating time to reflect on the limiting beliefs and conditioning that shaped me, especially those rooted in childhood. That deep introspection led to a powerful self-evaluation of the person I have been, the version of me I longed to become, and the truth of who I was becoming. There was a time when I had no confidence, no self-worth, and very little love for myself. But solitude taught me how to pour back into my own cup and how to refill it when it was running dry. Grief changed me, relationships changed me, losing friendships and support systems shaped me. It took failing over and over again, falling over and over again, and the setbacks. All of these things were robbing me of my joy, but it helped me build the resilience I needed to continue persevering. Let's talk a little bit about my sensitivity. My sensitivity, once a source of shame, became my greatest strength. What I thought made me too much was actually my emotional intelligence. It allowed me to meet others deeply and eventually to meet myself. When I stepped back from social media and stopped performing, I finally began being. That's when I became the self-aware, conscious warrior that I am today. I would just like to go a little bit into that about social media. The social media detox was a really massive part of my journey when it comes to solitude. I felt like I've never really aligned with social media. I've always known that everything was a performance and everything I was doing was just to fit into what was expected of me. from society. And when I decided to journey inwards, that external hold that social media had on me was released. And it was a very liberating part of my solitude journey. So choosing solitude helped me align with my higher self, even in the moments I felt like an empty vessel. It gave me space to alchemize trauma into purpose, pain into calling.
Having known you as long as I have, it's really eye-opening to see how much work you've done on healing yourself and aligning with your higher self. Another big question that a lot of people would want to ask you is, what is one of your biggest fears and how did it shape your healing journey?
In 2018, I lost my dad unexpectedly whilst I was in my 3rd trimester of pregnancy. It was my biggest fear, losing someone I loved, and I couldn't fully grieve while preparing to give birth. That collision of birth and loss changed me forever. I made a quiet vow to become the parent I never had, to protect my children from the projections I once carried. And I knew the only way to truly do that was to heal.
Having known you as a friend and now as a parent, I can definitely see all these values reflected. What do you hope this space offers to others who may be silently suffering or seeking connection?
What makes me really sad is that so many people suffer in silence. And I know that space well. I've lived it. That's why I'm committed to creating spaces where people can show up as their whole selves. A space where healing is welcome in all forms, where nothing is judged, where softness, rage, confusion, joy, grief, all of it is allowed. A space grounded in love, rooted in safety, held without expectation or performance. That is the vision for Align with Solitude. Whether it's through my own stories or the voices of guests that I'll be inviting into this space is about honest exchange, deep resonance, and collective expansion. Together, we'll raise consciousness, one real conversation at a time. If I could leave you with one thing today, it's this. Your inner process is sacred. You don't need to rush it, fix it, or justify it. You only need to honor it in your own time, in your own way. Thank you so much for those of you who've tuned in today to the first episode of Align with Solitude. If this episode resonated with you, or if there's any topics you'd like me to explore deeper, drop a comment down below. I'll be reading and replying to as many as I can. Subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon to be notified as soon as new videos are posted. There's so much more to come, and I'm truly honoured to walk this path with you. Until next time, honour your process, trust your path, and keep choosing solitude. Okay, cheers guys. I don't know about you guys, but when I talk a lot, I need to have a drink.